Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United.
We're back on All for United with the transfer specials. This is where we go behind the stories with journalists. It's also where we chat to different people that know their stuff about players that Manchester United are linked with. And today, thrilled to be joined by Zach Lowy. Zach, how are you doing, pal?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me on.
No, thank you, mate, for joining us. Really, really appreciate it. The reason why I reached out, I know you've done some work with Phil at Beyond the Pitch before. I know also you've got Breaking the Lines. You've been tweeting a bit of recent days as the rumours have kicked off around Darwin Nunez and United looking for a striker. So I thought you'd be the perfect guy to jump in and have a chat about Nunez with. I think bottom line, Zach, I think we all agree. First things first, United need a striker, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. I think that they need a lot of stuff, but a center forward has to be considered a priority. You look at their options right now. Edinson Cavani is leaving. You've got Marcus Rashford, who's probably more comfortable playing on the left. Obviously, we've seen what happened with Mason Greenwood. So I mean, there's really no clean-cut option apart from Cristiano Ronaldo. So. And I think it's clear that Ronaldo, his body isn't capable of playing 2 games a week. But I think that we saw really at the latter end of the season, I think, Ronaldo playing one game a week can still be a very fine player. But, in order to do that, you need to have someone who's going to rotate him out.
Yeah, I do agree. And also, I think young, hungry blood when it comes to a striker is also a good thing. You've got the ambition, obviously dream of doing bigger things, especially when you come over potentially from the Portuguese league as well. We've seen that effect happen with Diaz in January, joining Liverpool. And I think the Portuguese league has got more competitive and the players that you bring in, you can rely on. I mean, we've had an anomaly kind of season with Bruno Fernandes was what I was trying to say, but there we go, we got it out in the end. In terms of him not registering as much as last season, but hey, still the top assister in the Champions League, still the most chances created in the Premier League as well. So I think the Portuguese league are sort of they're starting to bring players through who naturally can take to Premier League football. And I suppose this is where we'll start. The Portuguese Press this morning, Zach, I saw from a tweet from you. We're recording this Monday afternoon. Talking about Nunez and United edging closer. So from what you're seeing over in Portugal at the moment from the Portuguese Press, are they pushing Nunez towards United more than United are pushing for Nunez? Or is there something happening here, do you believe?
I mean, I think that it's far too early. It's still May. So yeah, I tweeted out. I typically tweet out the Portuguese covers, and I will keep doing that this summer, so that all my followers stay informed on what the Portuguese press are saying, whether it's Jogo, Abola, or Record. But it's like I said, still a month left before the transfer window closes, so I would take whatever they're saying with a grain of salt. I think that if Darwin does end up going to United, I think that we'll see like a much more coordinated effort, from not just Record Abola, but also individual journalists like Pedro Sepulveda. That's what I would expect. But yeah, I think that Darwin is staying for now. I definitely don't see him. I think that Benfica are going to try to do everything they can to sell him on their own terms. I definitely expect him to leave Lisbon this summer, but I think that they're going to do everything they can to get top dollar. And to do that, you have to create a bidding war. So I definitely don't think he is close to Manchester United as of now.
You mentioned about the publication. Am I right saying El Jogo? Is that right? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Jogo.
They're the guys who did it this morning. You mentioned a few other publications there in the Portuguese media. With Bruno Fernandes coming in, I remember the hysteria in the weeks before us getting Bruno. What is journalism like out in Portugal? How would you rate, so to speak, the more reputable publications? Who should United keep an eye out for in terms of the Portuguese press? Maybe even, in Madrid and Spain, there's certain publications that are more reliable, with Barcelona and Real Madrid news. What about Benfica and Portugal and the Portuguese press?
Look, I mean, the big three are Record, Jogo, and Abola. It's definitely like a trio of big time. You also have some other like smaller ones like CM Journal and stuff, but those are the big three I'd keep an eye on if I was a United fan. And I would also probably keep an eye on a few individual journalists such as Bruno Andrade, as well as Pedro Sepulveda. I think those are two very, very reliable reporters when it comes to transfer rumors and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, Darwin Nunez, as a player, as you said, he is hot property this summer. I mean, there's only a number of strikers out there, I think, that you can look at who's guaranteed to come into a side and give you goals. And although Nunez has only really been at Benfica for a couple of seasons, he's got a number of goals. He's still 22 years old. He's also starting to get himself, obviously, in and around that Uruguayan side consistently now as well. So tell me a little bit about Nunez and his start at Benfica. I think it must be said here, a big club like Benfica, for this to be a fact. It wasn't he Benfica's record signing when he signed a couple of years back?
Yeah, I believe he was the record signing in when he signed in 2020. I mean, this is a player who had a lot of hype on him when he joined Almeria in the second division of Spain. And yeah, he spent a year in Almeria and then joined at Benfica. Had a bit of a struggle the first season. I think that one. I mean, I think getting into getting up to speed with a top club like Benfica, it's not always easy. And there were some injuries, and overall, I think the weight of the transfer fee. Overall, it was just a very poor season, and I don't think there's a single Benfica player from that season who actually stood out. So like I wouldn't dive too much into it. But yeah, this season Benfica started off well, winning the first 7 games, but after that, really once they lost, they just completely fell off, and George Jesus ended up getting sacked. And yeah, pretty quickly it turned into a 2-horse race. So I mean, despite Benfica's struggles, Darwin has been a consistent threat, and I would say that he's actually improved under the interim manager Nelson Verissimo. He's adding more and more goals. He's stepped up and he's scored. He's scored against big teams, which I think has been one of the biggest criticisms levied against him. Like up until last month, he had not scored against Porto or Sporting, I believe. But then, of course, he scored against Sporting to win that to end up winning 2-0 and pretty much put a nail in Sporting's title hopes. And he should have scored against Porto. Very unlucky to have that. I still don't know how that was offsides, but when you look at that goal, even though it's offsides, I think it still shows you how good of a striker he can be, for sure.
Yeah, and obviously never had it easy. Obviously coming up through the leagues, he was at Penarol, and my interest on my research, what I found out about Darwin Nunez, which again brings this full circle, is United, and some people forget this. We signed Facundo Pellistri from Penarol, and what I didn't realise was, not technically or factually, but sort of that season that Pellistri came into the Penarol team was actually the season that Nunez left. And it's kind of like Pellistri took Nunez's place in the Penarol team at that point, as he went off to Almeria and then obviously went on to Benfica. So it's mad how it sort of comes full circle, but shows the work that as a club in what they've been doing to breed these young players, because they've got 2 players there between the years of 2017, 2019, who are potentially at Manchester United. Who knows what happens to Nunez this summer? But that's a massive win for them in terms of the players that they've brought through, and a big success for obviously Uruguayan football. And I think what's interesting about Nunez as well, like you say, the duck that apparently he had in the Portuguese league is it's sort of come through that adversity. But most notably, I think Champions League. And I think his performances against Liverpool are what going to stand out for many football fans across Europe and here in the UK. Zach, so sort of when it comes to Nunez and that maybe those performances we saw from him in the Champions League, how much of a complete player do we have here?
Look, I do think that Nunez has to work on certain aspects of his game. Namely, I think hold-up play and passing. But for me, those are the two biggest concerns. And I mentioned that like a month ago when I was on an Arsenal podcast talking about Darwin's potential fit at Arsenal. So those are the biggest areas I think that he needs to work on. But I think he is improving on that. I think he's learning how to be like less greedy in transitions and making the right decision. But that is definitely something that he's gonna need to be coached at. Whether it's Arsenal or United or whatever team he ends up at. I don't think he's the complete package yet, but he's 24 or something. And the fact is he's got a lot of the raw materials that are needed to be a top striker. He's got the pace, very, very fast for a man of his size, very physical, obviously knows how to use his body and just bully defenders. He's got that poaching instinct. So yeah, I do think that he is, and above all, he just has that mentality. I think that you can't really teach. So I'm very optimistic about Nunez. I think he's a very good talent.
I haven't watched him. What do you think gives him that edge, that mentality or that mental edge, so to speak? Because he also comes across as quite a leader at the front. He never gives up. He's got really, really good at work ethic. What do you think gives him that edge? Is it ambition? Is he quite an ambitious person?
Yeah, I would say it's part of that. I think that he's a player who just, who has not had it easy and knows that you need to just keep working and keep running, and I think he has become more of a leader this year as he's learned the language somewhat and, has definitely become more vocal. But yeah, that's one thing as well about Darwin. He never stops working. That's why I thought that, I thought he could be a very good fit for Atletico because he seems like a Diego Simeone type of striker. But I think those qualities would definitely carry over well in the Premier League. I think that, as I mentioned, the game against Porto, between Benfica and Porto, in the second to last week of the season, Darwin scored a phenomenal goal that should not have been ruled out. And yet, even after getting that ruled out, he was still, pushing, and Benfica were still pushing. They were the better team against Porto. They were pushing for that goal because Porto, were fine with a draw. They could win the title with a draw. Benfica did not want to, they obviously did not want Porto to celebrate the league title in their home stadium. So, and Darwin, I think, was really impressive in like leading that, making sure that they never stopped. But Benfica, they ended up conceding in the final minute off a corner kick that they attempted. That was pretty bad, and Porto broke on the counter. But like if you look at the pic of the Zaidu goal, you'll see that it's funny. Adel Taarabt, he stops running at like the halfway mark. Well, he doesn't stop running, but he goes from like he's tracking back and he goes from sprinting to jogging at the halfway mark. Darwin, on the other hand, blazes past him, like keeps on sprinting to try to track back. And I think that's one of the big reasons why Adel Taarabt will be remembered as one of the biggest wasted talents of his generation. Whereas Darwin Nunez, obviously still a lot of work to be done, but I think he could very well become one of the best strikers of his generation.
God, I tell you what, you are right. Him, Ravel Morrison. I mean, just a couple of players that could have really become, I suppose, boulders in some ways because they had that natural gift, didn't they, of the ball at their feet like glue and the natural skill as well to take on any man. But as you say, it's a work ethic, and I think work ethic is so important in football nowadays. And I actually think this is what you said there. You mentioned Atletico. sounds like a good player for a Klopp system as well, unfortunately. And I really think he's going to be one of those players, Darwin Nunez, that if you bring him in, not only is he going to strengthen your side, but maybe you don't see the best of him for maybe a season to 2 seasons, especially in the top flight. Maybe he's one of those that will get better and better and better as a coach settles him down and gives him reign to play football. But I also think you're probably weakening an opposition as well by not giving them the chance to sign a Darwin Nunez, because what a player he is and could be. And I think a little bit like the Lucas Diaz decision that Liverpool made decision that they made in January. It was either they risk him going elsewhere or they get the deal done now. And I think ultimately they got the deal done and they're reaping the rewards. And I think, if I'm United, you need a striker. My only question would be, Zach.
Yeah.
You're not going to have Ronaldo playing second fiddle to Darwin Nunez, and you're not going to have Darwin Nunez want to play second fiddle to Cristiano Ronaldo, are you? So my only concern is he's still a young lad, and he looks like a natural number 9 top player.
Right.
But has he ever played more towards the left or more towards the right? Like, is he an inside forward, or is he for you just an out-and-out centre forward?
I mean, for me, he's an out-and-out centre forward, but he has played on the left a few times. Yeah, I mean, he's a player who also can shift even when he's playing as a center forward, he can shift over to the left. But yeah, he has been also played on the left with like someone like Roman Yaremchuk starting up top. But I don't know, there have been a lot of games where Benfica, they need a goal, and they'll obviously they'll bring on a lot of attackers. But the thing is, Benfica have a ton of center forwards. They've got I think 6 center forwards right now. They've got Darwin Nunez, they've got Rodrigo Pinho, Haris Seferovic, Roman Yaremchuk, Henrique Araujo. They've just signed Pitar Musa from Boavista, who I think it will end up being the Darwin replacement. So they have a lot of center forwards. They don't have too many wingers. They've got Rafa Silva, Everton Cebolinha, Nemanja Radonjic, not great options. So a lot of the times we've seen Darwin move to the left to in the later stages of games to accompany a center forward. And yes, while he can, put in a cross from time to time and, do stuff, I think that he definitely, we've definitely seen his influence decrease when he's moved out of his natural position and moved to the left, and for me, he definitely plays best when he's in the box, not when he's cutting inside and trying to fire in a cross. So yeah, I would definitely be wary of that. Yes, there is that possibility, I think, of potentially Ronaldo playing is kind of that false 9 that we've seen him, that we saw him occupy in several games this season. I thought that, I forgot which game it was. I think it was against City, or it was a game in the past few weeks where United lost 3-1. But I thought Ronaldo had a great performance just with his hold-up play and distributing it. So I suppose there is that possibility, but Darwin, I don't think necessarily that Darwin would reject a move to United because of that, because I think he knows that Ronaldo probably only has one more year left at United. It's hard to see him staying past 2023. And, and at the same time, I mean, I think that perhaps having Ronaldo there, perhaps it, in some ways, it takes away from the pressure. You're not being thrown into the deep end and, expected to start from day one. Yes, you've got, a legend that you're competing with, but, I would perhaps expect him to be with a substitute role, maybe, depending on what United's other signings are, and starting in Europe, which I think would be a good deal for him. I think that, like I said, he needs to adapt, and I could see him perhaps having some disappointing moments here and there in his first season. I think that he's going to need to adapt for sure. But like I said, I don't think that Darwin, for me, the biggest thing that I've seen with Darwin, I think he cares more about the project than like what club he's going. You know, I don't think he would reject United for not having Champions League football, because like the past 2 moves he's gone to, he went to a second division club in Spain, and then he went to a Portuguese club. A Portuguese club that had just lost the league title and that, has lost the past 2.
Yeah, I think it's interesting with Darwin Nunez, because I think we've got a player there that we can be patient with. But I think frustratingly for United fans, we thought the same with Martial. Rashford came through, but I think both players were pushed out wide, and I think that ruined that killer instinct that they both had as centre forward. So we spoke a little bit there, Zach, about his motivation and some of his pros and what he can bring Darwin Nunez. Right. We've seen one of the greatest Uruguayan finishers at Old Trafford recently in Edison Cavani. So with Darwin Nunez, what is he like when he's in front of goal? Is he calm? Is he composed? Is he a great finisher? I mean, we can see from his statistics as a centre forward at Benfica, I mean, 57 games, 32 goals. I mean, that's not bad, is it, for a returner? Yeah. I think it was something like 30 games and 15, 16 or 17 goals for Almeria as well in the second division. So what is he like in front of goal? And what do Benfica fans think of Darwin Nunez? How far do they think he can go?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think there are definitely some similarities between him and Diego Forlan. And if you haven't yet, definitely check out my exclusive interview with Diego Forlan on Breaking the Lines. But yeah, I think that he's a solid finisher. You know, he doesn't overcomplicate things. He's a guy who knows how to, find the back of the net, and he knows which foot to go with. Whether to go with a header, whether to go with a low finish. What do Benfica fans think of him? I think that there are a lot of Benfica fans who recognize that, he's a fantastic player, and that they should try to keep a hold with him, and hold out for top dollar. So yeah, I do feel like perhaps there were fans that were too harsh on him, because I think that, like, ever since he joined Benfica, I feel like, there have been a lot of fans who just kind of see Darwin as a pile of money and like don't really care about anything else than just selling him. They don't appreciate the player, and they kind of obsessed with their academy perhaps, and think that there's just some random academy kid that's going to do better than them. I feel like that perhaps a little bit of arrogance to a degree. Yes, Benfica have a fantastic academy, but with that being said, like, they've produced how many players in the past 2 years? And I mean, I don't see any center forward doing better than Darwin there. So I do feel like, yeah, I do think that, his price tag has made it a bit unfair for him. I think, perhaps similar to a degree to what Paul Pogba and Harry Maguire have experienced, fighting against their price tag more than their players. We forget that, yes, okay, these teams pay a lot of money, but it's not the players' fault, and at the end of the day, like, just because you pay a lot of money for a player doesn't mean they're going to be an 80 million player. So I think that with regards to Darwin, I think that, maybe he's not an 80 million player right now, but I think he definitely could be. And I think that with a player like Darwin, you pay for potential. So and everyone knows that the center forward position, that is the most lucrative. That's where you're gonna have to pay top dollar. And so yeah, for me, like, if Juventus are paying 70, 80 million for Dusan Vlahovic, no disrespect to him, he's a fine striker. I don't think that Vlahovic is better than Darwin. So I don't know why Benfica, a team, that I don't know why Benfica would accept less than what Fiorentina got for Vlahovic.
I was going to say, Zach, what is that price tag then? What have you heard anything? Have you seen any reports of what that price tag might be to get Darwin Nunez out of Benfica this summer? And make sure you add United tax onto it.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, yeah, that is, I think, the big question. What is going to be his price tag? And look, you have to consider the fact that even during a very poor season for him, like we still saw the likes of Brighton or all these different teams uh offering for him. I believe that West Ham sent in an offer for him in January, and I believe that they rejected it. But I think Arsenal did too. But Benfica recognized that they could hold out for top dollar, and I personally think that Porto, I think that they could have gotten a lot more money for Luis Diaz if they had they had waited until the summer. But the fact is, the failure to qualify for the Champions League knockout round, that definitely precipitated that sale. So yeah, no, from what I've seen, with regards to Darwin, is that I believe the asking price is between 75 and 80 million. Or actually, yeah, 80 million pounds, I believe. That's what I've seen from that. So because I believe that Benfica would have to also pay Almeria like 20%, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, then you've got you've got to pay, I think, Almeria 16 million of that 80 million, and Benfica, I guess, would collect 64 million. I believe it's 24%. I'm 20%. I'm not 100% certain. But yeah, 80 million is what I have heard. I'm not too sure if it's euros or I believe I've seen reports for both 80 million euros and 80 million pounds. So like I'm not too sure, but I would probably expect it to be in that in that bracket,
I saw an article. I think it was translated into the English press over here, but it was from Record, who you were speaking about earlier on. And I think this article was a couple of months back now, but they quoted it at, like you said, 80 million pounds.
Right.
But there was also no mention in there about the 20% fee that we've also learned about over the past like 3 or 4 weeks. So I think ultimately you're probably looking at something around 60 million euros for Benfica, and then the 20 million euro or whatever it's going to be for Almeria, aren't you? Which is
Right.
You're looking at between 80 to 90 million euros. And with that said, Zach, obviously we talk big money in football. There's no bigger position when it comes to investment than a striker. Yeah. We talk about that there's some areas he needs to improve in. I'm going to ask you the question outright. Are the Lukaku reference points a bit harsh on Darwin Nunez, or are they a compliment? Sort of don't know where we're at. I think it's because of the first touch that many people are pointing out. Maybe people only watch competition videos. But what do you make of that Lukaku comparison?
I think that's an interesting comparison. I mean, I think that Darwin and Lukaku are perhaps two players, who thrive in transition, who are best. I think, I think who thrive in transition and who have that combination of pace and physicality. So I think that's definitely an interesting comparison. The one thing that I will say though is that, like, I think that when scouting strikers, one of the most important things is to look at the goals that they score. Because if you look at Lukaku's goals from that Scudetto winning team at Inter, like a lot of those are going on the transition, and it's not always the case for Darwin. So I think that that is a good exercise for like any fan, like look at the goals the scored and picture like could those goals be replicated. And I think we found out that that frankly Conte and Tuchel's system's very different. I think there's perhaps less difference though with Ten Hag and Benfica with both Verissimo and Jorge Jesus. I like I said, I think there will be there are potentially some links, but I do think there are different as well. But yeah, I would say that the biggest things that they are like that they are similar in is that there are two players who thrive on that combination of physicality and pace. but like people forget that, you need those qualities in a center forward. If you don't have them, then you're not getting the full package either.
I also think, in terms of where we're at the moment, Nunez's ceiling is much higher. It has to be. He's 22 years old, right? So he's got room to improve. Way more. And I think the issue with Lukaku is that for him to have improved that first touch, he would have had to have taken something away from his all-round game at that point as well. What people loved about him was he was big, he was strong, but he also had the pace. If he was then going to lose, we saw it with Memphis Depay a little bit when he came to United. He bulked up that muscle on his leg, and he wasn't the same player. If Lukaku was going to bulk down, so to speak, or try and shred a bit to try and improve that first touch and be a little bit lighter,
right?
I think Nunez is in a good position where he can sort of get between the both, but still improve on that touch, still find that moment of quality. And he excites me, Nunez. He really excites me. So what about the Uruguayan fans, Zach? How much hope are they putting in Nunez to be, that next big player for them, the next big number 9 to take over, I expect, Cavani's big boots within the next couple of years?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do think that they have a lot of high expectations for him. I mean, it has been an interesting few years for Uruguay, but yeah, we look at those two legendary strikers, Luis Suarez and Edinson Cavani. Both are, I believe 35, so definitely reaching the end of that of their cycle, right? And Darwin, I think, is finally stepping up. There have been, like, I think that center forward, they've been chasing that center forward, to step up. It didn't work out with Maxi Gomez, who has not really made a name for himself at Valencia. But Darwin is doing a great job, and I think that Uruguayan fans, when I look at them, like they're all hyping him up. I think perhaps even more than other younger players like Diego Rossi, Facundo Peistre, Facundo Torres. My good friend Nahuel Bo, who is an Uruguayan who lives in Spain, and he follows the Portuguese league religiously. He's always been a big fan of Darwin. In fact, actually, that's how I found out about Darwin when he was still playing in Uruguay. Just I think right before he moved to Almeria. That's how I found out about him. So yeah, they are big fans of him. They think he can definitely, they think he can play a very important part in their team.
Wow. I do feel like I've learned a lot about Darwin Nunez, and I do feel like there's going to be a lot of Manchester United fans very excited. But here, Zach, is your opportunity. And by the way, can I just say, I read a report as well earlier today that Cavani has apparently, so to speak, recommended to United that they look at Nunez if they're in need of a striker. And of course, as Zach there said on his Breaking the Lines podcast with Diego Forlan, he highly recommended United to look at Darwin Nunez as well, and spoke about Nunez on the podcast. Quickly, Zach, where can people go and listen to that?
Yeah, they can find that on my Twitter page as well. They can find that on both BTL Vid as well as Zach Lowy, ZACHLOWY on Twitter. Yeah, I did speak with Diego Forlan about his time at Manchester United, plenty of stuff. But yeah, you can also find the full interview on our YouTube. So that's Breaking the Lines on YouTube. So yeah, definitely very, very good watch.
Thank you, mate. And I appreciate your time today, but this is where you have the opportunity to bring us United fans way back down to earth after the last half an hour. So you said you're sure that Nunez leaves Benfica. What do you reckon? Does he join United this summer? What do you think? Does Ten Hag kick off his era at Manchester United with a brand new number 9 in Darwin Nunez? What do you think?
Look, I think it's too early to say, but what I will say is I am 100% certain that Darwin will be playing Premier League football next season. I don't think there's any chance he's staying in Portugal. I think that, Atletico, I think it would make sense, but I don't think they have the money for him. Ditto with, I think, other Serie A and La Liga clubs. So yeah, I think that he will be playing in a Premier League club. Honestly, it's very hard to say like where, because I think United need a center forward. I think that Arsenal definitely need a center forward, even with Eddie Nketiah leaving. And I think that perhaps Nketiah renewing will perhaps force them to go in a different direction, because I think that when you have Nketiah and Gabriel Jesus, I know he's been heavily linked. For me, they're similar types of players. I think that you need. If I was Arsenal, I would not be getting Jesus. I would be getting more of a physical center forward like Darwin. Get more of a complete package. So I think that Arsenal and United are two teams that will be interested in him. I could honestly see Liverpool making a move for him, because they're going to lose Sadio Mane and Divock Origi, and perhaps other players like Takumi Minamino. So I think there's an argument to be made that Luis Diaz is the Mane replacement, and you've got him, on the left, Jota capable of playing on the middle or the left. But I honestly could see them getting a center forward instead of a winger. And that's been an interesting thing about Liverpool. They have been sort of able to thrive without an out-and-out center forward. But so yeah, it'll be interesting. But I would not be surprised to see Liverpool make that splurge and try to go for Darwin, especially if they lose out on Aurelian Tchouameni to Real Madrid. I would not be surprised to see them do that. For me, I think that they will need to get a center forward this summer.
Also, it's worth noting that Newcastle are long-term admirers of Nunez as well, which will be interesting because they got the money. And ultimately, if they wanted to sit down tomorrow and tell Benfica that they'll pay whatever they want, that's the transfer fee agreed. And then it's over to personal terms. But then it's down to all the other clubs that you've just mentioned there, Zach, of course, to then put their money where their mouth is and to either match it or to see where they go. So I think it's going to be a very interesting couple of months. But also, let's face it, it's something that can also move extremely quickly. As soon as an agreement's made with the club. I don't think personally, I can't see Darwin Nunez having a problem with joining any of those football clubs. To be quite honest, so it's just down to who plays their cards first. Zach, it's been amazing chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time. We'll put the link to the Diego Forlan interview in the comments, so make sure you check that out. Make sure you join us again on Thursday. More breaking news from Fabrizio Romano today is that United's interest in Timber is concrete. So we have got a journalist and also a scout analyst joining us on Thursday to discuss Timber, where he's fitting at United, and if we can expect something to happen soon. So we'll speak to you guys on Thursday about that. For now, Zach, thank you so much for your time, and let's hope that we'll be talking sooner rather than later about Nunez being in a United shirt. I'd like our business done early this year, right?
Absolutely.
Cheers, Zach. Thank you for your time,
Take
mate.
care. Bye.